Welcome back. Look, if you try to move around at all where you live over the last few months, you'll know how expensive this has all become. Whether you're paying a taxi fare, whether you're buying petrol, just getting any kind of fuel has become so expensive. If you tried to heat your home during what so far has been a relatively chilly winter, and you've tried to use gas, you know how expensive that is as well. Well, the same thing's happening across our continent at the same time. For some people, these high energy prices are a little bit of an opportunity, particularly if you're a member of the African Energy Chamber. Senior Vice President for the African Energy Chamber, Verner, Ayukegba, joins us now. Verner, good afternoon to you, and thanks very much indeed for your time. Let's concentrate on gas first. I presume, with what's happening in Europe, the fact that that pipeline is suddenly closed for maintenance, we're going to see a lot more demand for African gas.
First of all, thank you very much for having me. Yes, absolutely. That's the case. And that has pretty much been the case since the start of the unfortunate conflict that is happening between Russia and Ukraine in Europe. There is an increased demand for African gas, African oil as well, overall African energy to be able to service global markets. So as a result of that, of course, oil producers and gas producers as well are seeing an uptick in the revenue which they generally get from these resources. I must say that it is also very, very interesting and a good development for those who have projects that have to be developed. For example, gas deposits offshore South Africa. Now, investors are much more likely in this kind of an environment to put money in to be able to develop those resources, which will also be a good thing for consumers in South Africa.
All of that's the case. The problem is we don't know how long these prices are going to last, and unless you know someone in the Kremlin, I don't know either.
Well, we certainly don't know, but to be honest, prices go up and prices go down. We've seen prices at 140. We've also seen prices at 30. That shouldn't stop us from living. The unfortunate thing, of course, is that for consumers at the moment, these higher prices do have an effect, inflationary effects on the prices, and that's why we're seeing prices across the continent for those countries that import significant amounts of these resources. Now, what we think should happen is, of course, that African countries across the board should look to develop these resources internally and also refine them, and that reduces or at least mitigates the inflationary pressures that one sees when one is looking at consumer prices.
In other words, if we make money out of the oil and gas that we have, it makes it easier to afford the high prices for oil and gas.
Number one, yes. Number two, if at all we do exploit the resources that we have here, if we do exploit South African gas off the coast of South Africa and also process that gas in South Africa, we kind of mitigate the impact on the prices that generally South Africans are exposed to as a result of what is happening globally.
Is there an issue around infrastructure? It's fine, and I mean, I realize that it's really in the north of the continent that has, for the moment, the gas that's going to Europe. But is there enough infrastructure to get it to Europe at that stage? Are you expecting more investment there too? Well,
there is somewhat infrastructure, particularly when you look at a country like Algeria. But there needs to be more. There needs to be certainly more. And I'm not talking about infrastructure only to service Europe. We need to think about infrastructure to service Africans as well. We need to think about infrastructure, gas to power infrastructure, which can service the South African power market. I mean, it's no news that we are having difficulties with respect to power in South Africa with significant amounts of load shedding. We need to be able to develop gas infrastructure in South Africa and across the continent. And yes, that is where we need to see not just governments, but private investors invest. But they would only do that if at all the environment for investing is an interesting one. So this is, again, another call to governments to get on with the job of making sure that we have better investment environments to get people investing in energy, to get people investing in energy infrastructure on the continent.
There's a huge argument going on underway, I think, in the South African energy sector about how much gas we may need. Some people say it's a sort of transition fossil fuel. It's not really a fossil fuel. I know that the EU Parliament has said that gas isn't a fossil fuel in terms of carbon emissions at the moment. The argument against it is that maybe we can just use renewable electricity, renewable energy, and we don't need gas. What for you is the argument for a bigger gas industry in southern Africa?
Well, the argument for me and the argument for the chamber is that we need reliable and affordable energy to be able to service people. We have 600 million people on this continent without any kind of access to power, and we need to work that 900 million without any kind of access to clean cooking fuels, the majority of those women and children. And so for me, when I look at the situation, I say we get bogged down too much in definitions. Is it green or is it not green? Bear you, a year ago, without the conflict, gas was not green in Europe. Now that they need it, gas is green. We need, as Africans, as the African continent, look at it and say, what do we need? If we need power and we do have gas, we just need to get on with the job. If we have renewables, let's get on with the job. There's no need playing one off against the other. If renewables can be exploited on the continent at a market-driven rate where it beats the others, welcome. But the idea that we would limit ourselves to renewables is a fallacy. We need to get on with the job. We need to get on, including with hydrocarbons, because you know what? What we need the most is power. There is no need why we need to be able to decarbonize in Limpopo in the same way as people are looking to decarbonize in New York. We have totally different problems, and we need to look at what we need, and we need to get up with the job. And if gas, like what we have offshore South Africa, like what we're seeing, which is coming offshore Mozambique, like what we're seeing is coming offshore Namibia, there's no reason why we should be in darkness here in South Africa or anywhere else in Africa. We need to get on with the job. We need to use the gas. Gas is important. Transitioning, yes, we can transition. We need to use gas until we have other sources which make sense for us.
Verner, Ayukegba, thank you. Senior Vice President of the African Energy Chamber. I do appreciate the time.